Republicans have controlled this committee. So my question is, why is it that you need to create an entirely new subcommittee when you literally could go through and do whatever work it is that you're talking about handing over to the gentle lady who has never seemingly brought up anything about efficiency? The only thing I recall from the 118th was her spending a lot of time on somebody's junk in this committee. So let me be clear. Y'all had a chance, you chose not to use it, so why should the American people be convinced that now all of a sudden, because you create a new committee that has been promulgated by a real oligarch?
Representative Kweisi Mfume introduced an amendment during this hearing that made so much sense. His idea was simple. Combine these congressional hearings to consolidate government resources and spend less money. You'd think that would be a no-brainer, right? But of course, the other side had to come in and be against it. Typical, right? Before I go any further, let me show you the clip of Representative Mfume introducing this amendment. Let's take a look.
This amendment, I believe, strongly helps the Oversight Committee maintain the order, reasonableness, and intellectual honesty for which we have been known for many, many years as a committee for, both in the Congress and more broadly in the minds of many of the American people. Specifically, my amendment would preserve the jurisdictional authority of the Subcommittee on Government Operations and Federal Workforce in the current Congress from what it was in the previous Congress by merging the Government Operations Subcommittee and the newly fashioned Delivering on Government Efficiency Subcommittee in the 119th Congress. As an initial matter, Mr. Chairman, I call our attention to the fact that this committee operated in the 118th Congress, also with 5 subcommittees, yet the proposed rules before us today would expand that number to 7 subcommittees. In an age where government efficiency is the mantra, it appears that we're doing exactly what we say the federal government should not do, growing in size and creating unnecessary overlapping bureaucracy. As a point of personal privilege, Mr. Chairman, I served as ranking member on the Government Operations and Federal Workforce Subcommittee in the previous Congress. And thanks to a very healthy working relationship with Subcommittee Chairman, the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Sessions, we were together able to repeatedly go after the bad guys, the swindlers, the fraudsters, and the crooks, and in the process analyze many of the underlying causes for improper payments in federal government programs that were draining American citizens of hundreds of millions of dollars and depriving many of our poor citizens from some of the basic things they need because oftentimes the money had been taken out, swindled, and stolen. Likewise, we were able to address backlogs and delays at federal agencies, including within the Department of Defense, and we've had a healthy working relationship with a number of inspector generals who were part and parcel of the work of that committee and very much responsible for not only finding the bad guys, but also moving toward conviction of many of them. So forgive me if I find it not genuine to pretend that the pursuit of government efficiency is new. We've been doing that, and we've been doing it year after year. Likewise, forgive me if I find it not genuine also to divest the Subcommittee on Government Operations and Federal Workforce of all of its jurisdictional rights. And when I say all, I mean some of the most important ones, particularly the oversight of federal employees. Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, I believe each one of us know that on both sides of the aisle, in our heart of hearts, American campaigns and American elections are in peril because of money. I would offer also that our government is in peril but because of money, but money going the wrong way, from where it's supposed to go to people who have devised all sorts of schemes to get around that and who are making fortunes off of money intended to help the American public. So I just believe that this situation we have really calls for the merger of these committees, not the separation of them. And as I said before, not the growth from 5 until 7. So I would urge members of the committee to consider that, consider the work that we've been doing in that subcommittee, to consider the fact that these 2 committees should have joint oversight and be combined. And I would urge its passage and yield back without objection.
See that right there? That's leadership. Mfume is out here trying to get Congress to work smarter, not harder, but the other side, they weren't having it. They'd rather keep wasting time and money than admit he had a good idea. Now let's fast forward to Representative Marjorie Greene, because of course she had something to say. She was basically okay with having as many meetings as Congress wanted, no matter the cost. And she had the nerve to say that these hearings would cut waste and spending. The irony, right? Let's roll the clip of what she said, and then we'll talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to commend Chairman Sessions for the good work that he's done on government ops. I think that's been great. However, our current state of affairs is we are $36 trillion in debt. Congress cannot have enough committees on oversight to look at cutting the ridiculous amount of spending, waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal government. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to chair the subcommittee on DOGE. Also, I don't think that we should be shaming people for success in this country, as we're hearing from the ranking member today. You know, success is something every single American strives for, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that Americans can be successful. And in doing so, cutting the ridiculous amount of spending that has carried on for decades here in Washington, D.C. is one of the most important steps that we can take as members of Congress in ensuring that the American people are successful. And doing that, we can get them and hopefully dig them out of this grave of debt, which is $36 trillion.
All right, so let's break this down. She's talking about cutting waste, but at the same time, she's okay with dragging Congress through endless meetings. How does that make sense? It's like they're just trying to do the opposite of what Mfume suggested, just because they can. It's frustrating, y'all, because we're talking about real solutions here, and they're playing politics. Representative Maxwell Frost came through with the facts, and I was here for it. Frost broke it all down. He pointed out how having these same hearings over and over is just Congress doing the exact same thing again and again. It's repetitive, it's a waste, and honestly, it's exhausting. I mean, what's the point of spending all this money if we're not getting anything new out of it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I just want to point out, you know, we just heard someone say that we can't have enough committees to look into government efficiency. But if you know anything about efficiency, you can have too many committees doing the same exact thing. It's almost as inefficient as having two co-directors of a fake Department of Government Efficiency. And so if we want to be serious about this, which I'm very skeptical that folks are, I agree with this amendment on combining these committees, subcommittees that would essentially do the same thing, help us consolidate government resources and spend less, which is supposedly what you care about. And so I'm in support of this amendment, and I also would yield some time, if he wants, to my friend Damon.
Yep, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to associate myself with the comments of my colleague from Maryland. I want to thank him for bringing this amendment forward. Look, we all know that Doge was started as the original meme coin, and this particular subcommittee that's being proposed feels a lot like a meme subcommittee. We're a serious body. I'm honored to be here, but I think we have to take the business of oversight and accountability seriously. I think political stunts, which is what this looked like, are really not appropriate. So I'll yield back the remainder of my time.
Let's move on to Representative Andy Biggs. Instead of focusing on what Representative Mfume's amendment was actually about, combining these hearings to save time and money, Biggs decided to take a detour and bring up his favorite elected official's name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Let me show you the clip of Biggs doing what he does best, deflecting. Check this out.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I pose this amendment. It is dripping with TDS. Dripping with TDS. This is the crap that goes on from the other side. The fact that you would say, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about Donald Trump and hassle him. I mean, that you talk about cooperation, oh, lovey-dovey, let's unify, and then you just spit all over a fairly rational move, which is to divide a subcommittee up to actually go after specific items while the other one's going after broader items. And Chairman Sessions did a great job. $1.7 trillion of improper payments over 3 years. Wonder where that came from. from the same guys who are criticizing wanting to look at DOJ more specifically. Mr. Chairman, this is what you get. They want you to feel good and join their hand in hand and walk along with them while they want you close enough so they can stab you in the back. I'm an absolute no on this. I wish that I felt there was some sincerity to work together, but there is none.
Would the gentleman yield?
It's perfectly clear in the comments of the ranking member that we just heard, and I'll yield to the chairman.
See, this is exactly the problem. Mfume is over here trying to get something done, and Biggs is playing political games. It's like he just couldn't resist throwing in a distraction instead of addressing the real issue at hand. But don't worry. Representative Melanie Stansbury came through to make sure everyone had time to respond. She didn't let Biggs's little detour slide without giving the conversation some balance.
The stated purpose of the DOJ subcommittee is to promote government efficiency. Wouldn't we also want government efficiency here in Congress? I think that is what Mr. Mfume is trying to achieve with this amendment. And with that, I yield the remainder of my time to him to explain.
I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. Unless I have a different set of ears to the gentleman who raised the very strong objection, I don't think I ever mentioned the word Donald Trump or Elon Musk or anything else. So I'm not over here playing games. I'm too old to be playing games. And I think as long as we try to conduct ourselves with some sense of dignity without being so upset that you point to the person who made the amendment with accusations that are untrue, that's not playing.
Will the gentleman yield?
After I make my point, yes, I'll be more than happy to yield. I'm just saying if we're going to have a bipartisan relationship here, which is what Mr. Sessions and I had as we chaired and co-chaired that committee and came up with all of those savings in dollars, it was because we took time to recognize the dignity of both sides and the right to disagree in a very agreeable sort of way. So when you make those accusations about me, sir, go back and look at what I said in the introduction of this amendment, and you will see that you were clearly off mark, and I will yield.
Thank you. Yes, you and Mr. Sessions worked together. I did not make comments to you. I specifically mentioned the ranking member. I'll yield back.
Representative Nancy Mace, who of course had to throw her own jab into the mix. She went on to say that you can't rely on a group of people who can't define what a woman is to define what government efficiency is. Like, really? That's the kind of energy she's bringing into this hearing. Let me show you the clip so you can hear it for yourself.
I don't think we should be taking the advice from a group of people who can't define what a woman is. You certainly can't define what government efficiency is. So let's just start right there, Mr. Chairman. I support the subcommittee, the creation of the subcommittee on DOJ. I wildly support Marjorie Taylor Greene as the subcommittee chairwoman. And again, to the party who says we don't like or support women, well, guess what? We have two women on this committee who are subcommittee chairwomen who carry gavels. And we're working for the President of the United States, the President who made the first female chief of staff ever in the history of the United States. And I also want to correct the record of the ranking member earlier. There's no Republican up here who has cut Social Security. That is a lie. That is a lie being promulgated by the left, aided and abetted by the mainstream media, and all those liars out there on social media on the left saying that is not true. And when we want to talk about oligarchy, we had Joe Biden, we had Nancy Pelosi, we had Chuck Schumer controlling everything on the Hill in the Capitol for years. And guess what? They've all delivered. They delivered the worst economy in history for Donald Trump. They have delivered more terrorists coming across the southern border than any administration in history. And so this subcommittee is greatly needed, Mr. Chairman. I hope that we all support it unanimously. Ms. Greene, you're going to do a great job as subcommittee chairwoman. I would love to be waved on anytime you let me, because it's time that we stop wasting American taxpayers. It is time that we stop wasting time up here on the Hill. We stop wasting time here in Congress talking about BS. And someone brought up dignity earlier. I would love to see dignity and respect for women up here on the Hill, which is why we should ban men from women's spaces, which is why we should ban men from the locker rooms, from women's locker rooms, which is why we should ban men from women's dressing rooms. I'm done with this. We got to get back to common sense. We got to get back to fighting and working hard for the American people, and we've got to do it together. So you guys can talk all you want on the left side of the aisle. You're not going to be successful because there was a mandate in November, the most historic mandate by Donald John Trump. And the American people want us to get our stuff together. Notice how I'm not cursing today. They want us to get our stuff together and work for the American people. And that starts now. That can start with the DOJ subcommittee. That can start with every committee on the Hill today if we put in the effort and the work to do it.
Representative Jasmine Crockett wasn't holding back. She called out the Republicans in a way only she can, reminding them that they've had their chance. She straight up pointed out how the Republicans have controlled this committee, and let's just say, the results speak for themselves. Let's roll the clip of Representative Crockett laying it all out for them.
I'm so glad that we could finally end that nice little propaganda commercial break. Listen, I don't know what Ms. Mace was talking about. I thought we were talking about government efficiency. And the last time that I checked, this committee in the 118th, just like in the 119th, has been governed by the Republicans. Chairman, is it not true that you were the chairman in the 118th? You were. Okay, so the Republicans have controlled this committee. So my question is, why is it that you need to create an entirely new subcommittee when you literally could go through and do whatever work it is that you're talking about handing over to the gentle lady who has never seemingly brought up anything about efficiency? The only thing I recall from the 118th was her spending a lot of time on somebody's junk in this committee. So let me be clear. Y'all had a chance. You chose not to use it. So why should the American people be convinced that now all of a sudden, because you create a new committee that has been promulgated by a real oligarch, you're talking about Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they were actually duly elected, not somebody sitting there buying Twitter and just happened to be the richest person in the world telling y'all what to do. Let me tell you something. Y'all need to find some people that actually care about their constituents. And honestly, whenever y'all are ready to work, we on this side of the aisle have always been ready to do what is right by the American people. Instead, what you can continue to do is go after the most vulnerable in our country. The fact that you just sat up there and somehow figured out how to tie trans folk to your argument makes no sense to me. But let me tell you something. Trans people ain't going nowhere, just like when the racists wanted to make sure that black people somehow were going to be dismissed in this country. We ain't left either. And I'll yield.
Would you yield back?
I'll yield to the gentleman from Florida.
I just want to say one thing, and I hope everyone's listening, because there's something one of our colleagues just said that I actually think is true. It was a lot of lies, but there's something I think is true. And it's when they said that they work for Donald Trump. Last Congress, no Democrat on this committee worked for Joe Biden. We work for our constituents, and we worked with Joe Biden. That right there shows why this committee and this subcommittee is being proposed. It has nothing to do with your constituents, nothing to do with government efficiency, and has to do with your boss, not the people who elected you, but Donald Trump, and then his boss, Elon Musk.
See, that's why I love Representative Crockett. She's not afraid to say what needs to be said. The Republicans have had control of this committee, and instead of making real progress, they've wasted time chasing headlines and political points. Crockett made it clear that the results of their leadership, or lack of it, are right there for everyone to see. And honestly, she's right. If you're going to hold the power, you've got to show results. But instead, they've used their control to push agendas that don't actually help the people they're supposed to represent. Crockett wasn't letting them off the hook, and I'm here for it. This is exactly the kind of voice we need in Congress. Someone who's going to stand up and hold folks accountable, even when it makes them uncomfortable. Crockett said what needed to be said, and I can't wait to see how she keeps bringing the heat. Thank you for watching, and remember to stay woke. See you in the next one.